We're about to get this session underway. We've titled this session, the last session before lunch, The Consequences of Inaction in Syria, and we've got a great set of speakers. Before I turn it over to Bob Kagan, I just want to remind everyone that you can follow us today on Foreign Policy I on Twitter, and we're using the hashtag FPI Forum if you want to tweet questions, and we'll take a number of questions from Twitter and from people watching on C-SPAN. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robert Kagan, who's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution and also one of FPI's board of directors. So, Bob?
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you all for being here to discuss this extremely important topic. I must say my own view of things is that if the French are ready to go, we should go. That's my rule of thumb in foreign policy. And in that regard, I think it's both mystifying and shameful that the Americans are so far behind on this issue that they are once again letting the French lead the way. But I wish I was more confident that the Americans were actually following in this case. But in any case, that'll be the subject of our discussion today: Syria. What to do, why we aren't doing more, what outcomes we might want to see in Syria, what are the methods to get there. And it's almost literally impossible to imagine two people better suited to having this discussion. Sitting next to me is our old friend, a living institution in the United States, the leader of foreign policy thought in the Senate, and I guess I would say in Washington. I won't go through his whole distinguished biography because you all know Senator John McCain. Well, I'll save that. I'll do it afterwards, or I'll send it around to anybody who wants to see it. But it's really a pleasure to have you here again. Thanks, at Bob. FPI. And it's also a great pleasure and honor to welcome Bernard-Henri Lévy to FPI and to have this discussion. He is also someone who needs no introduction, but I think since American audiences may not be as familiar as they ought to be, despite his best-selling book about America called American Vertigo, which I think is based on the Hitchcock movie. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
But he's also been, he's a philosopher, he's a thought leader, and he has put himself frequently in harm's way in the most noble of causes. And one of his other books is called La Guerre sans l'aimer, which I believe translates to War Without Love, which is about his time in Libya, which was a kind of, it's a literary diary inspired by his actions during the war in Libya. He's the director of a review called La Règle de Jeu, which I believe is called The Rules of the Game, which is based on the Renoir film. So there's a movie theme here. But in any case, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us to talk about Syria. Let me just start by asking Senator McCain, because you're in frequent contact with the U.S. administration, there was some speculation, I think, I don't know what it was based on, during the campaign that President Obama and the administration in general were reluctant to take action on Syria while he was running for office on a theme of, the receding of war, and a hope and an expectation that after the election, then they would begin to put some steps in place. And we did have Secretary Clinton and the effort to build a new Syrian opposition group. Do you see a new movement in the administration on this issue?
Well, I certainly saw an effort to organize better the Syrian resistance, and Secretary Clinton and others in the administration played a very active role in that effort. I'm also hearing from their usual source, they send their information out through the New York Times, as you know, that we're now going back to try to convince the Russians to. I thought we'd fairly well exhausted that avenue, which was, of course, a blind alley to start with. But I've still not seen any indication that the United States would take the active leadership role that, frankly, the entire Middle East is crying out for. I just have not seen that yet. I hope it will happen. I pray that it will happen. We're now up to 40,000 and climbing. And of course, as all of these kinds of civil wars or conflicts go, they escalate, and the atrocities get worse, and the bombing and the things that were never contemplated or seen early in this uprising are now basically tactics of war. And the thing that bothers me more than anything else, Bob, I agree that someday Bashar Assad will fall. We've been saying that now for 20 months, something like that. But in the meantime, what carnage will take place between now and then? Because every time there seems to be a modest escalation on the side of assisting the resistance, there is an escalation by the Iranians, by the Russians, by the formation of this now group. I forgot now what they call themselves, a paramilitary organization they're trying to form up. So I kind of see steps of escalation with the resistance making some progress, but a long, long way from victory.
The administration's, you can't tell whether the administration's insistence on going to the Security Council and getting Security Council authorization is a way of being very sincere in its desire to get a Security Council authorization to move forward, or whether it's a way of hiding behind the Security Council and not taking action. But let me ask you, Monsieur Lévy, what did you, in France, I think the American assumption is that the French would agree that you can't do anything without a Security Council resolution. I'm wondering what your view on that is, given that at the moment, and really for quite some time now, it seems very unlikely that the Russians would approve any serious action to overthrow Assad. What is your view of how important it is to go to the Security Council, whether we should be dissuaded if we can't get a resolution?
Let me tell you first how, just one word, how honored I am to sit next to Senator McCain. Senator McCain embodies for me and for many Frenchmen one of the most noble things in the world, which is physical bravery, physical courage. And I remember 4 years ago, I was very embarrassed. I had a vested interest in Barack Obama's campaign because I predicted 4 years before that he could be an American president, so I was for him. But I had a real embarrassment when I saw the performance and the bravery of Senator McCain. And for me, it's a big treat to be here with you and to discuss with you.
I'd like you to come out to Arizona with me sometime.
2016.
So that's the point I wanted to make. About the United Nations, how important it is. Of course it would be great to have United Nations. Of course it would be better. But please, if United Nations was a moral authority, then it would be indispensable to have it. We could not do it without. But United Nations is so corrupt, morally corrupted. They accepted so many bloodbaths in the 20th century. They closed their eyes on Bosnia. They closed their eyes on Rwanda. We cannot take shelter under the veto of Security Council in order not to do anything. This is really an alibi. It is an excuse. There are a lot of people in France and in America who are very pleased of this veto. It's very comfortable to be able to say, we would love to go, but there is this moral authority, this anti-gun law of Security Council. This is a joke. And what I can tell you is that I remember so well the first day when Nicolas Sarkozy received the transitional authority of the Libyan people, the NTC, in Palais de l'Élysée. I was here. I took the three guys, Ali Zaidan, Prime Minister today, Mahmoud Jibril, Ali Al-Essawi, to Nicolas Sarkozy's office. Nicolas Sarkozy exposed to them his plan to prevent the bloodbath in Benghazi. They were very happy, and one of them, Ali Zaidan, asked, but Mr. President, what if you don't have the endorsement of United Nations? Nicolas Sarkozy made the following reply. He said, number one, I will have the endorsement because I'm very strong, I'm very voluntary, I will have. But if I don't have the endorsement, I will do without, because you have situations in history of humanitarian emergency where there is, of course, the laws, but also the law. And Sarkozy said, if ever by mischance I did not get the endorsement, then we would build, there is other organizations, regional, you have Arab League, you have African Union, you have NATO, you have European Unions. I would build with my friend David Cameron, this is the quote of Nicolas Sarkozy this day, we will build a sort of substitutional, of legitimacy of substitution to deal with this moral emergency which we are facing. So it will be the same about Syria. If we can, of course. The proof is made that we are hijacked, that the human rights are hijacked by Mr. Putin, the great democrat of Chechnya, the man who erased 3/4 of Grozny. He is entitled, apparently, to say what human rights is and what defense of human rights should be. This is a terrible joke. And we have to, I think, that the only decent thing to do would be to proceed without that.